Hello and welcome to the Astrology and Spirituality show for week commencing the 21st of March. Now, of course, we've entered into the start of the astrological year with the spring equinox. So the sun is just finding its way this week in the sign of Aries. This is the beginning of the journey. This gives us an opportunity to feel excited and to try to refresh those elements or strands of our situation which are meaningful to us, or perhaps instigate new approaches. Now, the ruler of the sign of Aries is of course Mars, and that's been in a crunching right angle since last midweek with Uranus, and that reaches a peak on Tuesday. If you have been feeling tense, irritable, or a little bit sort of less patient than usual, that may be why. In a more political sense, we can see with that aspect people pushing back against any kind of restrictions, or where restrictions are ruthlessly applied, and that of course sadly is playing out in the world. And then we also have on Tuesday and Wednesday Mercury and Neptune combining in the sign of Pisces. Now in the first cardinal quadrant for the first 13 weeks of this year, they're actually together in the 7th house. So we've got to pray that that does bring some negotiations, some developments of peace and tranquility. But in our situations, I think that Neptune can diminuate the clarity of Mercury. Mercury not at its best in Pisces, but by later in the week, Mercury's forging a sextile with Pluto. So if we need to think about things more clearly, I feel that that will give us the opportunity to do that. Also, Friday sees a quarter moon in the sign of Capricorn. So whatever we're trying to do that's new and fresh could be restricted by those who want us to follow the established edicts, traditions. So if we are needing to interact with a big government agency, perhaps a line manager, or we're needing to achieve something as an individual, we just need to be perhaps a little bit aware of the responses we might get, particularly if we're trying to do something that's really quite novel, fresh and innovative. Now, in terms of the Hermetic wheel, what have we got this week?
Wow, well, talking about freshness and innovation, the entirety of this week we have the Two of Wands. This is very much a card of new beginnings. It can be a card of choices because twos in tarot generally can represent choices. But if it is a choice, it could be a business choice, or maybe we're changing a career or thinking about a new direction in our lives. It's very new, it's very fresh. It's like when we embark on something for the very first time and we have all that inspiration flowing through us. So do something, we must do something this week with that, that energy that we have to create something brand new.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you too for everyone for discussing last week's show. There was a lot of very profound comments. One person didn't feel that we should be discussing what was happening in the Ukraine. And this week, we haven't actually had any words for the week suggested, but we did have Carmen Kardashian very kindly commenting us, very enthusiastic about some of the things that Elisa and I could do. She suggested that we got a tarot card pack together, and also perhaps we produced the diary for each day of the year. If you're subscribed to my daily overview, Carmen feels it would be great to put all of those in a book so people can actually see what's coming up for each of the days of the year. Now, we think that's a terrific idea, but obviously we've been sort of going through a lot of changes in our personal situation. We moved, and the house we moved into needed quite a lot of attention. So once we can get our heads up and some fresh air, these are the kind of ideas we could grapple with. But in terms of the word for the week, we're going to have to reach for the cookie jar. So,
okay, so we'll give this mighty cookie jar a good little shuffle, and Patrick will pull a word for the week.
See what we get then.
Okay, the word comes from Gloria, and the word here is empowering. Thank you so much, Gloria, for suggesting this. You suggested some words a few weeks ago, and unfortunately your name didn't come out of the jar, but it has now. So empowering. I think, it's a big word, isn't it, empowerment? But we can empower ourselves and other people in smaller ways. So, for example, if we're trying to help empower somebody else, it could be teaching other people tools to be able to do something for themselves. And that ultimately, empowers them. It's kind of like that saying in the Bible, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, but teach a man to fish and he'll eat for the rest of his life.
That's brilliant.
It's like, we can share our knowledge and therefore help empower other people.
Perhaps the other way to look at empowerment is how we can become quite aware of how unempowered we feel. So it's not just the positive outcome of this card, it could be an awareness to how vulnerable we feel or how we don't have much control over life. So one of the key ways of that at the moment is, of course, the sort of fuel and energy and cost of living crisis, where a lot of raw commodities have gone up. They're likely to go up even more because of the events in Central Europe. And that's going to leave a lot of people feeling profoundly disempowered because they don't feel they can do anything about it. And for some people, it will have been a choice between eating or heating, and that's not very empowering. So maybe is in taking the word empowerment, we can actually see where we're lucky to be empowered, but try to retain our humility and our awareness to those who are having a less empowering time. I think a lot of the teachings of the last 20 years have been very much about the self, in my humble opinion, whereas, whether we're Christians or not, a lot of the teachings of Christianity were very much about a concept of working together. I'm not talking about religions within Christianity. So you could say the teachings of Christ is about helping those who are less fortunate. So from my perspective, I think it's being sensitive for those who don't have much power over their situations at the moment. So, for example, there are lots of people. For example, someone wrote in last week and said, please don't forget Hungary in terms of people taking in refugees from Ukraine. So great point. Apologies for my oversight. But also Slovakia, I think, is doing a great job as well. So yes, it's about staying sensitive to those who don't feel they have much power over those lives, but also becoming much more conscious of where we can help others, like Elise is saying, and also being grateful for the empowerment we do already possess. Now, in terms of the modality, what cards are you going for this week?
Well, this week we're using teeny tiny angel aura cards. I got these free in a magazine quite a long time ago. They're by an author called Jenny Smedley. So we shall pull one of these for the week and see what our spiritual message is. Okay, the word on this card says strive. And it says here, no walls or barriers can imprison you if you have hope. It's interesting because when Patrick was just talking about empowerment, I quite like reading real life books, and I've read a couple of books from people that have been in prison. Some of those people were in prison for reasons and for quite a long time, maybe even in prisons overseas. And one of the things that they had control over in that situation was their imagination and their mind, and creating a space within themselves to get through that incredible hardship. And it's very difficult for any of us to understand if we, haven't been through a war personally, or if we haven't been through, been a prisoner of war, for example.
Or any kind of trauma in life.
Yeah, these things can also happen in abusive relationships where, you feel trapped and stuck. And what this card is saying is having that, striving to hold on to hope. Some people don't like the word hope. They feel it could be a little, wishy-washy, but I personally think it's something that can help us through some of the darkest of times. What do you think about the word strive?
Yeah, that's really good, isn't it? I think, I'm still incredibly motivated to do so many things. So strive for me, I'm very motivated to do some creative things, for example. So Carmen mentioned about the book. So I've had a few people tell me over the years that I should write a book, but write a book about my background, for example, which doesn't really appeal to me. But however, there is a particular concept that's been shaping up in the back of my mind. So I've got a lot of desire and the desire to strive towards that target. So a lot to achieve yet. But some people have a great gift to actually just appreciate the daily routine and just work within, achieving small but important things to keep everything very regular in their lives. And I actually have a kind of very Virgo energy. I actually have a real respect for that because they're living in the minute, where striving suggests in some ways that we want to go beyond our minute and keep moving towards some kind of new objective. And sometimes, of course, when we get to those objectives, we realise that we've changed and actually the objectives are quite nice, but we've moved on and we actually want something different. So striving isn't necessarily towards a fixed pursuit. I think we can think it is, and then when we get there, it's moved, or I've moved, and so that can be quite interesting.
But also knowing that it's never ever too late to do anything. One of the first books that ever changed my life was when I was 15 and I read Louise L. Hay's book, How to Heal Your Life. She wrote her first book when she was 65 and created one of the biggest publishing houses, Hay House, in the world. And it's like, she didn't do that until she was in, nearly 70. So it's never too late to start something new, to embark on a new
That's
dream.
a brilliant example, absolutely. Now, we did have one person who's a great follower of the show. Sadly, Sarah missed out on the birthday free prize draw. We also had 2 other people entered, and I'm sorry, one person, Amanda, did miss out. So the winner this week is Katrina. So I'm going to thank you for entering that, and if you'd like to enter your details for week commencing the 28th of March through till about, I think, the 2nd of April, then it would be a pleasure to select your chart and do a reading for it. Now, Katrina was born on the 25th of March in 78 at 2:50 p.m. in Glasgow, which gave her a lovely ascendant of Leo at 17 degrees. Did you get brought up by your grandmother a little bit, Katrina? I do wonder. You also have a delicious collection of energy, not just the sun. You have Eros, Venus, technically debilitated in Aries, but actually really like Venus in Aries because it gives people a lot of desire to get what they need in terms of connections to others. And also Mercury, pretty close to the 10th house in Aries, so a big collection of energy, but they're all in the 9th house, very, very Sagittarius. So I think your appreciation of knowledge or travel has probably been very high. But you do have some kind of political stuff in your chart because Pluto is conjunct the moon, and that's in Libra, and they're essentially opposite Venus and Eros. So I think when you love deeply. When you have affections that you want to express, you do so fulsomely. Your midpoint, however, is at 10 degrees in Capricorn. So despite having that thrust of that Aries energy and a very adventurous set of influences in the 9th house, your midpoint is actually in Capricorn, but in the 5th house. So I think creativity, but tangible results for that creativity means a lot to you. Now, you do have a lot going on at the moment because the move in Pluto over the last couple of years, and even 2 years ago, Saturn, was squaring up with your Mercury. So I think there were some tensions in your situation, possibly to do with work, or it could have felt that you had a lot of demands on you, which is restraining your independence and freedom. But you also have at the moment, your midheaven is squaring up with the move in Pluto. So that energy of needing to balance what you need to do for yourself and also how it fits into your working situation. So something changing around work wouldn't be an amazing surprise at the moment. You also have the move in Pluto, or it has been, opposing your Mars. So I think there was some politics in your situation particularly exactly 2 years ago. And at the moment, the move-in Saturn in the sky is opposite your natal Saturn. So you're going through what's known as a Saturn opposition. Now, obviously, Saturn's journey takes around about 29.5 years. So you're halfway through your second cycle, if you like. And it means that Saturn's in your 7th house. So it's asking you, the transit in Saturn is asking you very much to think about your relationships and whether you're getting everything you want from them. Also, the move in Uranus is set to go into an opposition with your natal Uranus. So this happens once every 42 years. So a big set of life events have happened over the last couple of years and can happen this year as well. Now, in terms of your life year, it's in terms of the perfections, you're in your 9th year. So that desire you have to download knowledge, be very open-minded, perhaps travel where COVID restrictions allow, I think that's going to be emphasised this year. But in terms of your progress chart, your sun has moved to 17 degrees Taurus. So over the last couple of years, it has been going opposite your natal Uranus in Scorpio. And of course, Saturn has been squaring that move in Uranus, the move in Saturn, therefore squaring your natal Uranus. So you've had a T-square between one move in Uranus, one static Uranus, and the move in Saturn. So I think the last year has probably created quite a lot of tensions. And in this move-in chart, the sun at 17 degrees in Taurus is going to be joined pretty soon by the move in Uranus. So that desire to be more daring, more spontaneous, to investigate things more, I think is really compelling at this time. Now, in terms of your progressed Saturn, that's not that much different from when you were born, because if I just have a look, yeah, Saturn was retrograde when you were born, so it's moved back 1 degree in the time that you have been on the planet, and therefore the move in Saturn is still in an opposition with your progressed Saturn as well. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a flavour. You do have in your progress chart, however, Venus right on the 10th house cusp, and your personality power and your qualities of relating are going to be very important to your professional prospects this year, and someone could find what you have to offer very intriguing and very persuasive, and they may want to work very closely with you. You also have Mars in your progressions in Leo now, so that gives you a lot of extra self-confidence and drive, because when you were born it was of course in Cancer, where it is in its fall. So I think Mars is liberated, so there's the chance for you to be much more go-getting. It is obviously, therefore, your progressed Mars is caught up in a fixed grand cross with the move in, or has been over the last year, with the move in Saturn, the move in Uranus, but also your natal Uranus. So I think there has been some tensions, Katrina, to be honest, but your desire to break out, be free, and investigate and explore is definitely going to be emphasised this year. I hope that that resonated with you. Now, in terms of any comments you've got, any words of the week you'd like to enter for next week, we'd be very, very grateful for them. But for now, from the A team, it is
goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from her. Goodbye.